Emma Harris stared out of the car window as the Harris family drove through winding roads lined with towering pine trees, the distant glimmer of Lakewood Resort finally appearing ahead. The trip had been Michael's idea, a desperate attempt to mend the silent rift that had grown between them over the years, but Emma wasn't sure it could work. Every mile closer to the lake brought a mix of hope and skepticism. She remembered last year's failed vacation, the promises that faded into quiet dinners and half-hearted smiles, and she wondered if this time would be any different. Michael, focused on the road, occasionally glanced at her, his expression a mix of hope and unease, as if silently asking her to believe in him. Their daughter, Lily, pressed her face against the glass, squealing at every passing tree and sign, full of the kind of unfiltered excitement that made Emma's chest ache with a longing for simpler, happier times. When they arrived, Michael parked the car and let out a sigh, stepping out and stretching as if the fresh air could wash away years of tension. Emma stepped out carefully, feeling the crisp breeze brush against her face, noticing the shimmer of sunlight on the lake in the distance, the way the water reflected the sky like a fragile mirror. They carried their bags toward the cabin, Lily running ahead, her laughter echoing through the trees, a sound that temporarily chased away the knot of anxiety in Emma's chest. Inside the cabin, the smell of fresh pine and polished wood mixed with the faint scent of their luggage, creating a strange, almost comforting blend of familiarity and novelty. Emma unpacked methodically, her hands moving on autopilot, while Michael leaned by the window, staring silently at the lake, lost in thoughts Emma couldn't quite read. There was a vulnerability in him she hadn't seen in years, a quiet sadness mingled with a glimmer of hope that unsettled her. The evening came quickly, and they sat down to dinner, the simple meal of roasted vegetables and fish tasting strangely formal after so many silent nights at home. They exchanged polite words, asking about the drive, commenting on the lake, trying to fill the air with harmless conversation, but each word felt fragile, almost as if it might shatter under the weight of their unspoken feelings. Emma caught Michael's gaze for a fleeting second, and for an instant, the spark they had once shared flickered briefly, a reminder that connection was still possible, even if it felt like it belonged to another life. Lily interrupted with her usual cheer, bouncing in her seat and pointing at the lake through the window, reminding them both of what truly mattered, the innocence of her joy a stark contrast to the complex emotions swirling between her parents. After dinner, the family went for a short walk along the lake shore, the cool evening air brushing against their faces, carrying with it the faint scent of water and pine, the soft sound of gentle waves lapping at the shore providing a calming background to the tension that lingered. Emma noticed Michael's shoulders relax slightly as he watched Lily skip stones into the water, her laughter weaving through the air and momentarily lifting the heaviness that had settled over them. They didn't speak much, words unnecessary as the shared presence created a fragile sense of togetherness, though Emma knew it could vanish with a single misstep. That night, after tucking Lily into bed, Emma lay awake, listening to the wind rustling through the trees outside, the cabin quiet except for the occasional creak of settling wood. She thought about the years that had passed, the moments of closeness that now felt like distant memories, the arguments and silences that had accumulated into walls neither of them knew how to tear down. She thought about Michael's tentative smile, the way his eyes had softened when he looked at her during dinner, the flicker of hope she didn't quite trust. She realized that this trip wasn't about instant solutions, it was about attempting to bridge a distance that had slowly widened over time, about creating small moments that might remind them of the love that had once been effortless. Emma's mind wandered between hope and doubt, imagining the conversations they might have, the laughter they might share, and the quiet moments of connection that could slowly knit the frayed edges of their relationship back together. She thought about Lily's laughter, the way it seemed to fill the cabin with light, and how it reminded her that there was still something worth fighting for, something worth holding on to even when the path was unclear. Outside, the lake shimmered under the moonlight, serene and inviting, as if promising that despite the tension and uncertainty, there could be moments of beauty and clarity if they were willing to look. Emma closed her eyes for a moment, letting the sounds of the night wash over her, the gentle rustle of leaves, the soft lapping of water, and the occasional distant call of a night bird, all combining into a soothing symphony that contrasted with the turmoil in her heart. She thought about Michael again, how he had carried their luggage, the subtle care in his movements, the brief moments when his eyes betrayed the worry he tried to hide. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to consider the possibility that maybe, just maybe, this trip could be a starting point, not a cure, but a place to begin finding each other again. Emma turned onto her side, facing the window, watching the moonlight dance on the lake's surface, feeling a mixture of fear and hope, knowing that the days ahead would be filled with small tests of patience, attempts at communication, and moments where their old habits could either destroy or slowly heal the fragile bond between them. She understood that nothing about this trip would be easy, that there would be awkward silences, missteps, and perhaps disappointments, but the chance to reconnect, even in the smallest ways, was worth facing the discomfort. As she drifted toward sleep, she imagined the coming days, sunrise walks by the lake, shared meals without tension, quiet evenings sitting together under the stars, and she allowed herself a small, cautious smile. Maybe they wouldn't fix everything, maybe some cracks were too deep, but the idea that they could try, that they could remember the love that had brought them together in the first place, gave her a glimmer of peace. And somewhere, in the quiet of the cabin, Michael lay awake too, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the same things, wondering if this trip would be the one that finally reminded them both why they had chosen each other, and if, amidst the laughter of their daughter and the beauty of the lake, they could start to find their way back, not to perfection, but to a place of understanding, patience, and gentle love that had been buried under years of life's demands. The morning sun spilled through the cabin window, casting warm light on the wooden floor as Emma woke before anyone else, drawn outside by a restless need for space and reflection, the crisp air brushing her face as she stepped onto the balcony and inhaled the scent of pine and lake water, feeling both calm and unsettled, a reminder of the conflicting emotions she carried toward Michael and the life they shared. As she walked along the shore, the soft crunch of gravel under her feet mingling with the gentle lapping of water. She almost didn't notice Michael jogging toward her, his face flushed, hair slightly damp with sweat, yet his eyes softened in a way that made her heart tighten, an honesty in his gaze she hadn't seen in years, as if the lake had peeled away the walls they had built around each other, revealing the raw, vulnerable truth beneath. "You're up early," she said quietly, trying to sound casual, though her voice betrayed curiosity and concern, and he slowed, exhaling. "Couldn't sleep," he admitted. His words simple but heavy with meaning, and for a moment they walked in silence, the world around them fading into the gentle hum of nature, their daughter's laughter still echoing faintly from a distance, a reminder of why they were here but also of what they had lost in the process of life's relentless demands. Michael stopped near a cluster of reeds by the water's edge, turning to face her, and for the first time in a long while, he spoke the words that had been buried under years of unspoken tension. I miss us," his voice low, fragile, carrying the weight of longing and regret, and Emma felt her chest tighten, a mixture of relief, fear, and hope washing over her simultaneously, because she too had felt the absence of their closeness, the quiet ache of love strained by responsibilities and misunderstandings, and without thinking, she whispered back, "I miss us too," the words almost lost in the wind but powerful enough to bridge a small gap in the distance that had grown between them. They began walking along the shoreline, side by side but not touching, speaking of neutral things at first, memories of Lily's early days, small details about work, the changing seasons, but beneath the surface, each sentence carried unspoken emotions, a testing of waters to see if connection could survive in this fragile, temporary bubble of peace. And as they moved farther from the cabin, the soft sunlight bouncing off the lake's ripples, Emma noticed the way Michael's shoulders relaxed slightly, the tension easing just enough to allow glimpses of the man she had fallen in love with to shine through. As the morning wore on, they found a small bench overlooking the water, and neither moved to speak at first, letting the quiet embrace them, broken only by the occasional call of a distant bird and the rustle of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. And then Michael tentatively reached for her hand, brushing his fingers against hers in a tentative gesture that made Emma's heart flutter, unsure whether to pull away or lean in, caught between fear of disappointment and the undeniable spark of connection reigniting in a place she hadn't thought it possible. She didn't pull away, letting their hands touch, feeling the warmth and the familiar comfort of his presence, and they stayed there, watching the water shimmer in the sunlight, the reflection of the sky dancing across the surface like fragile fragments of hope, each ripple reminding them that healing was possible. Slow and uncertain, but possible nonetheless. Later, as they returned to the cabin, Lily ran ahead, her energy boundless, and Emma caught Michael's glance again, noting the softening in his eyes, a mixture of longing and tentative hope. Yet even as their hands brushed in passing, the weight of unsaid words lingered, a reminder that this journey was far from over and that moments of connection could be fleeting, fragile, and easily lost if not nurtured carefully. Over lunch, they attempted to converse more, sharing small stories and jokes, laughing lightly at mundane things, but the undercurrent of tension remained, a subtle pull of distance that reminded Emma of the years they had spent drifting apart. Yet in each smile and brief touch, there was a recognition that their love hadn't vanished entirely, only been buried under layers of routine, misunderstanding, and unspoken resentment. In the afternoon, they decided to explore a small trail along the lake, the forest thick with pine and the scent of damp earth rising after a light mist, and as they walked, Emma noticed Michael slowing occasionally to take in the scenery, his hands brushing against tree bark, his expression contemplative, a side of him she hadn't seen since their early years together, full of sensitivity and appreciation for small, simple beauty, and she felt a pang of longing for the ease of their early connection, wishing for a way to bring that warmth back into their present lives. At one point, they stopped to watch a family of ducks gliding across the water, and Michael crouched slightly to point them out to Lily, who giggled and mimicked their quacks, and Emma realized that these quiet, unremarkable moments were exactly what they had missed, the everyday magic of shared presence, laughter, and gentle companionship, the foundation upon which their love had been built and could perhaps be rebuilt. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Michael and Emma found themselves again by the lake's edge, the cool breeze tugging at their hair, and this time they didn't speak, letting the silence convey the emotions words often failed to capture, the longing, regret, hope, and tentative desire to reconnect all hovering between them like a delicate thread that might fray or strengthen depending on their next choice. Michael finally squeezed her hand, a small, cautious gesture, and Emma responded by leaning slightly closer, their shoulders brushing, a simple act that carried a weight of years of unspoken feelings, the realization that even amidst imperfections and failures, connection could be found in fleeting touches, shared looks, and the willingness to be vulnerable. And as they stood there, watching the sun's reflection shimmer across the lake, they both understood that this trip, while it could not erase the past, had created a fragile space for healing, a place where love could tentatively breathe again without pressure, judgment, or expectation. As evening fell, they returned to the cabin, Lily chattering excitedly about skipping stones and the shapes of clouds, and Emma caught Michael's gaze once more, the unspoken conversation of their hearts passing silently, a recognition that although challenges awaited them back in daily life, the seeds of connection had been planted, small yet resilient, waiting for nurture, patience, and care. Emma prepared dinner with a lighter heart, her movements fluid, thoughts focused on what had passed and what might come, and Michael joined her occasionally, offering quiet assistance and soft smiles, and in those moments, the years of distance seemed to shrink slightly, replaced by tentative warmth, understanding, and the shared acknowledgement of the effort it would take to truly find each other again. After dinner, they sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching stars emerge in the deepening night sky, the quiet punctuated only by Lily's sleepy yawns, the soft rustle of leaves, and the gentle lapping of the lake, and Emma felt a mix of relief, hope, and lingering doubt, knowing that while the trip could not fix everything, it had reminded them of the love they shared, the beauty of moments together, and the potential for slow, patient reconnection if they chose to embrace it. Lying in bed later, Emma reflected on the day's events, replaying each smile, touch, and glance, realizing that the road ahead would require effort, courage, and vulnerability, yet feeling a fragile optimism that this trip had offered a chance, however small, to rediscover each other, to speak openly, and to allow love to grow in quiet, unhurried ways. And as sleep began to pull her under, she let herself cling to that possibility, the hope that tomorrow might bring more connection, more understanding, and the realization that even amidst uncertainty, love had not completely faded. It had simply been waiting for a gentle awakening, one quiet moment at a time. On the third day, the Harris family woke to a clear sky, the lake glistening under the early morning sun, and Michael suggested they take a hike on the nearby mountain trail, an idea that brought both excitement and a slight tension as Emma wondered if the time together would finally bring them closer or highlight the distance that still lingered between them. Lily bounced ahead, her energy infectious, skipping over rocks and calling out at every butterfly and squirrel, while Emma and Michael followed at a slower pace, their steps in rhythm but their hearts heavy with unspoken words, the quiet between them filled with both anticipation and fear, a delicate balance between hope and the reality of years of strained communication. Yet even in the silence, there was an unspoken acknowledgement that they were both trying, that each step forward was a small act of faith in the possibility of reconnection. As the trail wound upward, they encountered patches of wildflowers, their colors vibrant against the green forest floor, and Michael paused to point out a cluster of bright yellow blooms, his voice soft, almost childlike in its wonder, and Emma felt a warmth rise in her chest, a reminder of the man she had once adored, the one who could still find joy in the small wonders of the world. And she smiled, realizing that these small shared moments were slowly knitting the fragile threads of their bond back together. Halfway up the trail, they reached a clearing overlooking the lake, the view breathtaking, rolling hills stretching toward the horizon, sunlight reflecting off the water in 1,000 sparkling fragments, and Michael turned to her, his eyes searching hers as if seeking permission to step closer, to speak the words that had been held back for so long, and Emma met his gaze. Her heart pounding with anticipation and caution, feeling a mixture of longing and fear, knowing that this could be a turning point or a fleeting moment that would vanish before it had the chance to grow. "Remember the first time we hiked here?" Michael asked, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips, and Emma laughed softly, the sound carrying across the clearing, blending with the breeze and the distant call of birds, and she realized that laughter, simple and genuine, was something they had both missed, the kind that eased tension and allowed hearts to open, even if only a little, and she felt a flicker of hope that maybe this trip could give them a chance to remember who they had been and why they had chosen each other. They sat on a fallen log, hands brushing accidentally, then deliberately, the touch sending a shiver through Emma, a reminder that even after years of distance, the connection they shared was still alive, waiting for the right moment to blossom again. And for a while, words were unnecessary, the silence between them full of meaning, of longing, and the tentative courage to reach for each other without fear of rejection or disappointment. Lily wandered nearby, picking up stones and tossing them into the lake, her laughter a gentle soundtrack to the intimacy growing quietly between her parents, and Emma found herself watching Michael, noting the way his eyes softened when he looked at her, the subtle smile that reached his whole face, the way his hand lingered near hers, and she realized that moments like this, fleeting and unguarded, were the foundation upon which they could rebuild trust, affection, and understanding, if only they allowed themselves to be present and vulnerable. As they continued along the trail, the forest canopy providing dappled sunlight, Michael occasionally pointed out birds or interesting rocks, his voice calm and warm, and Emma responded with her own observations, their conversation flowing naturally, free from the tension that had defined the previous years, and each exchanged story, each shared glance, became a thread weaving a fragile tapestry of renewed intimacy, small but significant, that reminded them both that love required patience, attention, and the willingness to rediscover one another. At one point, Michael stumbled slightly over a tree root, and Emma caught his arm instinctively, the simple act of support sparking a wave of emotion between them, unspoken apologies, regrets, and the acknowledgement of shared history passing in that fleeting contact, a reminder that even simple gestures could carry profound meaning when hearts were ready to feel again. As they neared the summit, the air grew cooler, and the view expanded, revealing the lake in all its glory, the sunlight glinting like scattered diamonds, and for a moment, the world seemed suspended in beauty and possibility, a perfect backdrop for the fragile, tentative connection that had begun to take shape between them. A connection built not on grand gestures but on small, deliberate acts of attention, care, and presence. They sat at the summit, breathing in the crisp air, letting the silence stretch between them comfortably, Michael's hand finding Emma's again, their fingers entwining with an ease that felt almost miraculous after years of tension, and Emma felt a deep swell of emotion, a mixture of relief, longing, and hope, knowing that even though the road ahead was uncertain, moments like this were proof that their love had not vanished, only needed patience, effort, and courage to rekindle. Lily climbed onto a nearby rock, calling out for them to join her, her voice full of innocent joy, and as Emma and Michael rose to join her, the shared laughter and playful banter reminded them that connection could be joyful, light, and unburdened, a contrast to the heaviness of previous days, and it gave them a glimpse of the family they could be, not perfect, but together, present and affectionate. Descending the trail, the sun beginning to dip toward the horizon, they walked slowly, savoring the remaining moments of the day, each step a conscious choice to be close, to notice each other, to allow vulnerability without fear, and Emma felt the warmth of Michael's hand brushing against hers with every step, the small pressure reassuring, grounding, and full of meaning. And she realized that these simple, deliberate choices, repeated day by day, were the true path to rebuilding their relationship, far more than words or promises could ever achieve. Back at the cabin, as they watched the sky turn shades of pink and gold, Michael and Emma shared a quiet dinner, Lily chattering about her adventures on the trail, and for the first time in a long while, Emma felt a sense of calm, a fragile peace that came from knowing that despite imperfections, setbacks, and years of distance, they were choosing to try, to care, and to reconnect in small, meaningful ways that could grow into something stronger over time. Later, when Lily went to bed, Emma and Michael sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the stars emerge, the lake reflecting the night sky in a mirror of soft light, and they didn't speak, letting the quiet speak for them, the gentle brush of hands, shared warmth, and the steady presence of each other conveying more than words ever could. A quiet testament to resilience, love, and the power of choosing each other again, even when nothing was perfect. And as they finally turned in for the night, hearts full but cautious, they understood that this trip, while not a cure-all, had offered them glimpses of what could be rebuilt, the hope that love, patience, and shared presence could slowly, gently, guide them back to each other, one tender moment at a time. The last day of their trip arrived with a sky painted in soft shades of dawn, and the Harris family awoke to the familiar sounds of birdsong and the gentle ripple of the lake, a serene start that contrasted with the heavy emotions lingering in Emma's chest as she wondered if the week had truly changed anything. If the moments of laughter, shared glances, and tentative touches could survive the return to routine life. Yet as she watched Michael quietly making breakfast and Lily bouncing around, excited to explore the cabin's small gardens one last time, she felt a fragile hope take root, a sense that even small gestures and quiet attention could carry weight far beyond words, and she resolved to notice these moments, to hold them close as evidence that reconnection was possible, even if the path forward remained uncertain. They decided to spend their final hours together walking along the lake one last time, Lily skipping ahead with boundless energy while Emma and Michael followed slowly, side by side, their hands occasionally brushing. A simple reminder of presence and care, the air filled with soft conversation about the week, memories of hikes, jokes shared, and small victories in communication, each sentence layered with emotion, nostalgia, and a gentle yearning for closeness that had been absent for far too long. And Emma realized that the real gift of this trip was not perfection or a complete resolution, but the awareness that connection could be nurtured patiently, tenderly, and with conscious effort. As they reached a quiet spot by the water, the sunlight reflecting off the lake in golden shards, Michael paused and gestured for Emma to join him, and when she did, they sat together on a large rock, Lily playing nearby, her laughter mingling with the soft calls of birds and the rustling of leaves. And for a moment, the world felt suspended, a bubble of calm and intimacy where time slowed and the weight of past misunderstandings seemed lighter, allowing them to speak without fear, to listen without judgment, and to feel without the usual defenses that had kept them apart for years. Michael turned to her, eyes searching hers with a vulnerability that made Emma's heart ache, and he said, "I wish we could stay here forever," his voice quiet but earnest, and Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Not of sadness but of recognition that love, though complicated and strained, was still alive between them, fragile but persistent, a force that had survived neglect and misunderstanding and now demanded gentle care to grow stronger. She reached for his hand, squeezing it lightly, and whispered, "We can't stay forever, but we can start here, now, and take it one step at a time." And in that exchange, years of tension, missed opportunities, and silent nights seemed to merge into a single understanding that healing was a process, not a moment, and that patience, honesty, and shared intention were the keys to rediscovering each other. They sat in silence, the lake reflecting the sky's deepening hues, the warmth of the sun fading into the soft embrace of evening, And Emma realized that the beauty of this trip was not in grand gestures or perfect solutions, but in the small, deliberate acts of attention, empathy, and love that had allowed them to feel each other's presence once again, to acknowledge the cracks without judgment, and to nurture the fragile hope that had returned to their hearts. Lily ran up, holding a smooth stone, and called them to join her in skipping it across the water, and as Emma and Michael knelt beside her, laughing and cheering with genuine delight, the tension of the past week melted further, replaced by a sense of family, of shared joy, and of the possibility that connection could exist even amidst imperfection, that love did not require flawless circumstances, only effort, understanding, and the courage to show up for each other repeatedly. As night fell, they returned to the cabin for their final dinner, the air filled with aromas of simple comfort food, the conversation flowing easily for the first time in years, small jokes, reflections on the trip, and gentle teasing creating a warm cocoon around them, and Emma felt a deep sense of gratitude, realizing that even if the trip hadn't magically solved all their problems, it had reminded them why they had chosen each other, why their bond had endured, and how small, intentional acts could slowly, patiently rebuild trust, intimacy, and affection. After dinner, they went outside once more, wrapped in blankets, sitting side by side, the night sky clear and dotted with stars, the lake mirroring the constellations above, and Michael rested his head near Emma's, her shoulder rising and falling with quiet breaths, the stillness speaking volumes about the fragile yet real progress they had made, and for the first time Emma allowed herself to believe that love, even tested and strained, could survive if tended with patience, attention, and quiet understanding. She thought about the week, the hikes, the quiet walks, the shared laughter, the moments of vulnerability, the gentle touches, the conversations that had broken down walls one small piece at a time, and realized that the journey of healing was not about grand gestures, sudden transformations, or dramatic confessions, but about showing up consistently, noticing each other, and embracing moments of connection when they arose, fragile though they might be. Michael squeezed her hand gently, and she met his gaze, seeing in his eyes the same recognition and hope she felt, a silent agreement that while life outside the lake would bring challenges, arguments, and distractions, they had created a foundation here, a reminder that the love between them, though tested, had not vanished, and that they could carry the lessons, patience, and intimacy from this trip into their everyday life, slowly rebuilding the closeness they had once taken for granted. As they finally turned in for the night, Lily sleeping soundly, they lingered in the doorway for a moment, breathing in the cool night air, the sounds of the lake and forest surrounding them, and Emma felt a bittersweet mix of sadness that the trip was ending and hope that what they had started here could continue, that the sparks of connection, laughter, and tenderness could ignite into something lasting if they both chose to nurture it. Lying in bed, Michael whispered, "This isn't the end, it's just the beginning," and Emma smiled softly, tears of relief and gratitude welling in her eyes, realizing that sometimes love doesn't need perfection or instant fixes, only awareness, effort, patience, and the courage to try again. And as she drifted to sleep, she held on to that quiet, unshakable truth, knowing that while the trip hadn't fixed everything, it had given them the gift of presence, understanding, and hope, the tools to rebuild their relationship slowly, gently, and sincerely. And in the soft darkness of the cabin, with the lake shimmering under the moonlight outside, Emma finally felt a sense of peace, knowing that love, when tended with care, could survive distance, time, and uncertainty, and that their story, though far from perfect, had found its fragile, beautiful beginning once more.